Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the One Step Better podcast. I'm your host, Mike Schaefer, and with me today, of course, is Matt Patrick. And today, we're going to talk about some fun things to get started and then jump into a topic that has been on our minds lately because it's something that has affected us and something that we've honestly been having some conversations about internally regarding remote employees and what that looks like in the future. And I would assume that there's a lot of business owners out there that are having some of these same conversations. So we want to give our opinion and get some feedback from you guys. And so thanks for joining me, Matt.
Yep.
Here's where we're going to get started. Yesterday was one of the most important days of the year by about 50% of our population in the country, which is Spouses Day.
Spouses Day. Hallmark holiday, I guess.
I get
No?
Hallmark's going to hopefully do some business yesterday. So my question for you.
The pre-Valentine's Day?
You know what? That's a good way to think about it. We have Valentine's Day. Why do we need a Spouses Day? Isn't it the same thing?
Because not everybody could be your Valentine could be not your spouse. They
I
get
guess
you in
that's
trouble
true.
when that's true, but
So I guess all the spouses out there decided, you know what? Valentine's Day is too commercial.
yeah, I need my
So
own day.
I'm going to want my own day.
Yeah, I agree.
That way the girlfriends and the boyfriends get excluded.
That's right.
That's smart. So anyway, you're married. You have a spouse.
Yes.
You've had one for a couple days now.
A couple years.
And so how in the world does Mandy stay married to you? No, that's not the question.
How long is the podcast today?
My question is, how does your spouse help support you best?
I'm only responsible for 5 things, and she's responsible for all the other things. My 5 things are very simple. I have to kill the spiders. I have to change a light bulb, but only if she bring me the chair and the light bulb. I handle all technology. I am the IT guy. I write all the checks. And I don't even know what the 5th thing is.
So it's not really that she supports you so much.
No, I don't have to do anything. That's what I'm saying. She takes care of everything. If it doesn't show up on my calendar, it doesn't exist. I don't have to worry about keeping up with kids. I don't have to worry about making sure kids get to here or there, or making sure that there's groceries in the pantry. I don't have to do laundry. She honestly can just 100% supports whatever I need to do outside of the household, and she takes care of everything else, and she enjoys that part.
Yeah.
Not trying to make too much light of it. She does. She runs our household like a well-oiled machine, and my job is just to not mess it up.
The way that she supports you is by keeping you out of the house so you don't screw up her operation.
Correct.
That's
Very
nice.
much so.
That's
Yeah.
nice.
No. I mean, from a work standpoint, we work together. She's been here now right at 10 years. It was one of the first concerns I had. And when we decided to hire her, I called other people that we were clients at the time that had husbands and wives working. I wanted to find out how they did it, because I know that I admired a number of our clients whose husband and wives worked together. I saw that they worked well together, or I could see where there's some conflict. In our world, Mandy takes care of a lot of our back office stuff to keep the office running, just like she does our house. She runs our administrative team. She runs our office. She manages our building. But also, at night, we're both on the computer working most nights, and she is there right with me. And it's a great team, and she is couldn't ask for a better spouse.
I don't want to get too far down this path because that's not ultimately what we're talking about today, but y'all work together. How do you keep I don't know if balance is the right word. Do you guys separate work and
Shaking
personal?
my head really loudly.
Yeah.
No, I don't. Work is never off for either one of us. And our lives are never off for either one of us. And we're both okay with that. When we go on vacation, we expect to work. When we go, we're going to the beach here in a couple of weeks again, probably. We'll bring our computers and we will probably work most days. But we can be gone for 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks at a time if our kids don't, have responsibilities and stuff to do. Because it's a blended work and life balance. Yeah. It's weird. We're a very unique couple that way. That's not normal for somebody else. If it was a job for somebody else, I couldn't see that working. When she didn't work here, it didn't work that way.
Yeah.
And it didn't work that way when I had a traditional job when she did. Work had to stop and life had to begin. But our lives just got so blended. It was just no easy way. Now, it also lost 100% flexibility, though. So if we want to go, like we've been to Europe, I don't know, 4 times in the last 5 or 6 years. All those trips were 3 weeks long. We were able to do it. We worked at night. It was great. We didn't miss anything at work. Nothing got messed up. It was a great trip. But I couldn't have done that if we had the ability to do both.
How many times has she wanted to fire you or tried to fire you?
Never. How many times she quit? That's the question.
I'm out of here. My boss is stupid. I'm getting out of here.
I've heard a lot worse than stupid. But no, honestly, she gets her feelings hurt when I act like an a-hole, and which she rightfully calls me out on.
Right.
And the problem is sometimes I lose my temper. I don't have the patience I need to have with her as an employee versus as my wife.
Because it's a different relationship.
It is. And so we've done better with that the last couple of years, but I mean, it's just one of those things, depending on situation, stress, all things going on.
Yeah.
How about you? How does your wife support you?
Man, in every way possible.
Yeah.
She's amazing.
That takes a lot of support.
Similar, my wife, she's a stay-at-home mom. And so with a bunch of young kids running around.
You have a bunch of young kids.
That's about 3 different full-time jobs going on, and she handles it extremely well, in keeping things organized and keeping us on track and knowing where we need to be. And I try to get involved in that as much as I can. The reality is, as soon as I do, I start to screw things up because she does have there's a system in place that she's cranking, and that's the way that it works, and I don't want to mess that up too much.
Give her the ball and stay the heck out the way, right?
Yeah.
Like a Michael Jordan offense.
Yeah, and so we do our best to, if I have to work late or if I have a lot going on, and she'll try to come and we'll do lunch together that day or something like that, just to try to stay connected, and that's a bit of a break from work for me to be able to do that, and that's helpful. That's super supportive, based on what kind of how I operate and what I need. And then at the same time, when I get home, it's normally we try to cook together and each night to try to spend that time together, and I try to help support her in that way. And so it's just a really nice balance of understanding that ultimately I have responsibilities at work, and she, outside of the home, she has responsibilities outside of the home, and we got to make sure everything gets taken care of between the two of us. And I think we're on the same page with how that works.
Yeah, I agree. And it is, you do a wonderful job. I think you do a wonderful job of separating work and home. I know when it is time to reach you, I can get you, but I also know that if it's not an urgent, I'm trying to disturb you because I know you do value that time and you don't let it blend too much.
I try to, yeah.
And you do a lot better job than I do. I don't even try anymore, so I don't even know what it looks like, but I think you do a good job with that.
I don't try anymore.
Yeah, I don't.
We can talk about that separately.
I don't really want to. I'm good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it the way it works. Yeah. I like the flexibility.
Well, so everybody that's out there, if you do have a spouse, just know that you're one day late on your Happy Spouses Day Hallmark card. So run to Kroger or Hallmark or Walgreens or wherever cards are sold. I shouldn't say those names. They should sponsor us.
Yeah. We're not sponsored by those folks. So
folks.
If you want to sponsor us, if you own a really large card manufacturer.
We're going to shout out every holiday.
Yep.
And so please come.
Please sponsor us.
But no, go give something nice or do something nice for your spouse, because if you guys are anything like us and you have spouses that are anything like ours, that encouragement really goes a long way. So
it's easy.
Happy Spouses Day, everybody.
Amen. It's easy to forget how appreciative you should be.
Yeah.
It's the easiest way to put it in my mind.
Gratitude, Spouses Day, Valentine's Day, birthdays, Christmas, all those things. Gratitude is never out of season, and there's always a chance to show appreciation.
We are in year 24, Mike. Done it 24 years in a row.
It's
not
amazing.
Spouses Day, 24 anniversaries, but it's amazing. I can't believe I'm that old. She's still young.
Can't believe she's
I know, 24 years, man. Just remember, a life sentence if you kill somebody is 20 years. So she could have been off by now.
Oh man. All right, let's move this.
That's my dad.
This along.
That's my dad's favorite joke. Hey, I've already done 2 life sentences. Yeah, that's my dad's favorite joke.
What we're actually really going to talk about today is something a little lighter than life sentences for murder, hopefully.
Yeah, maybe.
And that is remote employees and some of the things that come with dealing with remote employees. And here's how this has kind of really come out for us. We have traditionally not made a concerted effort to try to hire remote employees. It's not that we've been opposed to it or that it's not been something that we were aware of. It's just that we've always preferred people being here in the office. We have over time had some employees that for whatever reason, spouse got a job somewhere, or they just wanted to move, and we've kept them on as a remote employee, and they've done a fantastic job in our environment of being able to do that. But going out and actually targeting remote employees has not been something that we've traditionally done, except for beginning about last year, beginning of 20, before pre-COVID, we pushed out a couple of job ads that were open to having a remote worker.
Yep.
And there was a lot of, at least on my end, some anxiety around, is this really the direction that we want to go?
Yep.
Is this really going to be something that's successful? And in that time frame, over the past year or so, we've hired 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, so quite a few remote employees.
4 remote employees
that are all outside of our headquarters here in Memphis, outside of our presence in Little Rock. We have people in Nevada. We have people in Virginia, Florida, Texas.
Yep.
I believe that's all the states.
I think we've hired 5 remote employees. Stephen,
yeah,
Courtney,
he's still in
Amber,
Texas.
Danielle.
Yep. And then Kim and Jen are remote.
Mm-hmm.
So all that to say, it's been a learning curve over the past year of bringing those folks on. And there's been some things that have actually worked out really, really, really well.
Yep.
And there's been some things that we definitely have missed out on from having them here in the office.
Yep.
But ultimately, I think we both agree that the net effect of all of this has been really positive. So,
super positive, I think.
Yeah.
We're getting what I think is people that can jump into our atmosphere really quickly. We've done a good job of hiring people who've worked remotely before. So they're not getting into this, I've never worked from home before, now I am, this is kind of weird. But it allowed us to hire people that are more of a direct fit for what we currently do, that our development maybe doesn't take as long.
Yeah.
What I would think. But also we're just getting super talented people, and it allows us to not limit ourselves to our own geography.
I think that's been one of the bigger ones that has been a success. With the ability to go remote opens up our fishing pond from here in this geographical location to, we got the whole ocean now.
Yep.
And so
and now I can specifically target the fish that I want to. I can't catch a blue marlin in Memphis very often.
Yeah.
It's going to be tough. If I want a blue marlin, I got to go where blue marlin
are. To deep water.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that allows us to get to the right people.
Absolutely.
And we've been super impressed with all the people we've hired remotely, which has made it awesome. The hard challenges, though, have other challenges that are tied to it, which are, we'll talk about here coming up, but that's, how culture, team, training. Do you have the systems in place for review and quality control? All those things that kind of go into that.
Yeah.
With hiring people.
And remotely. Now, post-COVID, I would say post is probably not the right word. Now, in the middle of
COVID,
COVID, hopefully at the end of COVID, who knows? In the current environment,
yeah,
what we're seeing on the payroll end is, we represent hundreds of companies, and we're seeing an uptick in a lot of employers going out and hiring people that are working from home remotely in completely different states, cities, like not in their geographical footprint. And when I say an uptick, I mean a significant number of people are going this route. So
that causes a problem on the payroll. Why, Mike?
Yeah, we're going to talk about it. I got it written. I wrote it down right here.
Yeah.
But there is with that, I would imagine there's a lot of people out there that are going to have some questions, have some concerns, that probably even have the same preconceived ideas of, I'm not really sure that I want to get into this. And so I thought it'd be a good idea to talk about those today. And so where I want to start with, in our world, it was relatively easy just from a processes and system standpoint to go remote. Not everybody has that same luxury. So let's start by talking with, how do we know if having remote workers is the right the right thing to look at for our companies? So Matt, what do you think are some of the baseline requirements, the non-negotiables for a company to set in place if they're thinking about or looking at going to having remote employees?
You better have a technology-focused organization that is, the mindset of everybody there is that you're going to be tech forward. because to support somebody remotely who is not tech forward is challenging, and to not have the stuff already in place before you hire somebody remotely, try to figure that out why you're hiring them is probably
It's difficult.
It's going to be a challenge for sure.
There's a lot of outsourced IT companies that handle the technology piece of remote employees, and those folks are booming right now
I can only imagine, yep.
because everybody's kind of gone that way.
Hosting and the web, and depending on what systems and software and apps you need, will all depict that. We are a very software and app driven business in our world, which means our tech has to be on the higher end, and we have a ton of technology that we use to do our work. So if you're not that person, or you do not have that type of business, having remote employees can be a challenge depending on the role they're trying to fill.
Yeah. And the obvious one that everybody understands is what you actually physically require that person to be doing and where they expect to be doing it. If I'm, McDonald's is not going to hire me most likely as a remote drive-through
It's not very
order taker.
I have been to a couple. Have you ever been to one?
I have not.
Yeah.
This is a real thing?
Yeah, it is. Fast food restaurants.
They're outsourcing their order taking?
They do. It's all done through a computer, right? You're taking your order, and the order shows up in the store. They have a lady person handling your money, but the person who's taking your order is not in the store.
That's kind of cool. I didn't know that was happening. That makes sense that it was happening. Why do you have to be? Yeah. My point being,
it's not
right. If I'm a server at a restaurant, that's right, I can't do that from my house, right?
It's harder to serve from not the restaurant.
So, those are the obvious ones.
Max Headroom kind of thing. If you remember, Back to the Future has Max Headroom who took orders.
I'm not that old, man.
There's Back to the Future 2. Come on, guys.
I'm not that old.
Shut up, Mike.
Those physical things are pretty obvious and pretty clear, so we're not going to get into that. But there's a little bit of a gray area and gray kind of in between where, I guess the fast food worker is a great example of that. It's not traditionally being done, and that doesn't mean that it can't be done.
But you better have your systems in place to do it right away.
So if you're in that in between spot, you really have the opportunity to think about what that may look like from a business model standpoint. And you can start to run some numbers and do some math and put together plans around what that could possibly do for your ability to scale. Because what we're seeing, one of the things that we're seeing anyway, is our ability to scale because of our labor is increased simply because we have a bigger
couple things there. I mean, we were already remote with employees, so we knew that it worked. We also had a remote office, our office in Little Rock, through our merger with a firm there. So we were operating on people in multiple locations. Our systems were designed to be anywhere in the world you wanted to be. So that part wasn't a challenge. The hiring, the interviewing, the onboarding, the training, those things were something we had never really done before.
Yeah. Because
those were people that moved from our environment who had already been trained and developed here and then left. They just took their equipment and went to another place. That was a lot different for us. Identifying roles. We've done inside sales roles before remotely. That didn't work real well. We now have a remote salesperson. That's something we're learning how to train and develop him and monitor him and make sure that he's on track and has the tools he needs to, he's also creating a new market or even a new, an area of, we're going after partners there in that world, trying to find CPA partners that we can partner with. And so that's a different environment for us. So we're learning a new system and a new service even, and trying to do it remotely. It's been a challenge. For our people that are in our accounting function, though, who we already kind of had that role remotely anyway, once we got them on board, they can do the work. We know that system's already set up. We have to get them on board. Now, luckily, they all use the systems that we already did. Yeah. That's what made the nice thing about the pool. But it does allow us to scale. We've used an outsourced firm before, so we know how to get the work into the hands of people. And also, I think you don't have to remember, it doesn't have to be in the U.S. So the reality is with internet, you can have people anywhere. So there's a lot of people, outsourcing work to Philippines or India or Russia. I mean, we have a number of clients that are in the creative space, and a lot of them have creative folks that they use all over the world. You can do that now.
Yeah.
It allows you to do it easily.
And this isn't going to decrease. This is kind of where things seem to be heading.
It's called the World Wide Web.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we have clients that are doing outsourced sales that are hiring people all over the country because most of what they're doing is getting on a Zoom or some type of screen share type meeting, video conference with their clients wherever they are. And so they don't have to fly out and sit in that location. We have a client that is an investment firm that is hiring people all over the country. We have people that are doing residential property real estate that are hiring people all over the country simply because of the people that they're hiring, they don't have to be physically present here in their
They're
home.
doing real estate sales?
They're doing not real estate sales. It's a
Property management?
property management
sense, yeah.
investment type company, and they do a lot of flipping type stuff.
Yeah, that's
and
great.
So
And so they're finding properties. And then, that's
and
great.
and their kind of corporate team is spread out all over, and
Yep.
and they're finding ways in which to make it work. And your talent base is a lot different than where you're sitting.
The challenge, I think that we can still do better, and we've made a really strong emphasis on this, is culture, is making sure your culture permeates the remote team just as much as it does your in-house team, and make sure that they feel connected and they're communicating, and they get to know the people as people around them that they're working with every day. And I think we've done a really good job with that. It's still something we have to be really intentional about it, though. You can't just let it happen. It has to be a part of your DNA.
Our one of the things that we hold to is anytime we hire a remote worker, they're held to the same expectations of our internal team. We don't have, all right, so our local team. Our local team has to do X amount of production, but our remote people have Y amount. We don't do that. We don't say that our remote hours are X and our, here local Memphis hours are Y. We have the same expectations. We have the same policies. We have the same everything. They are a part of our team, regardless if they're sitting in an office downstairs or they're sitting in an office 500 miles from here.
Yeah, I mean, our person out west in Vegas, she works Pacific time hours versus Central time hours, but her huddle is still our huddle time.
Yeah.
She huddles with us every day, and she just gets in late and leaves late. That's okay.
Yeah.
In our world, that's not a big deal.
And one of the advantages of that is it could, in our case, it doesn't.
We can be open 24 hours a day.
But it could extend our hours to where now instead of 9 to 5, we're going to be 7 to 7, because there is somebody available.
And I think our East Coast folks probably get here early and leave a little early, and I'm okay with that too. We ask for a professional 40 hours a week. I don't care they get there.
Yeah.
And so.
But for anybody who's in a customer service type role that's responsible for dealing with our clients,
they have to be here.
They're going to be here during our working
majority
hours.
of the day, which is not a problem. And they're all available to email, and they're really, all of them overly communicate well, which is why we hired them. They've done a great job of communicating, keep everybody up to date. They've done a great job plugging it in. Just takes, got to figure it out.
One of the things that you have to really think about when you're hiring remote employees is the get-togethers that you have, physical get-togethers, maybe outside of COVID season, but if you do have company events where everybody's coming together, think about the logistics of, all right, I got a bunch of team people that are going to be coming and flying across the country to get to here. And what does it look like to, put them up in a hotel or the flights or whatever? I would encourage you to the best of your ability, according to your budgets, to pay for all of that, to bring them in, to get them face-to-face with as many people as you can once or twice a year.
Yeah, my goal would be at least twice a year. I also would like them to bring their spouse if they can. I want their spouse and their significant other. I want them to feel connected to the firm.
Yeah.
I want them to feel like connected to part of the organization. So we had an event at Christmas. Everybody came in. We invited everybody in. Not everybody could make it. We're going to do an event again for St. Patrick's Day. We'll invite everybody back in. We'll do an event this summer. And so we'll try to get them in here at least 3 times this year. It's a little hard this year. COVID's still going on all over the country. So we did as best we could. Some areas were better than others. Some people didn't feel comfortable flying. All that was perfectly fine. Yeah. We also do virtual happy hours, and we do, when we did game night, we can do online game night. And so we can do all that stuff remotely now, and we can get on the internet and we play together. Jackbox, if you ever looked at Jackbox, it's pretty fun.
Try to see your team as much as possible.
Yeah,
get them on camera.
Yeah, you want to get them plugged into your culture.
Because ultimately, I want you to feel like you're part of the team.
Yeah,
and then the culture that we have created is going to permeate to wherever you're sitting, regardless if it's here in Memphis or all the way across the world.
Yeah.
Because now you're a part. In our instance, you are now part of Works. You are part of Patrick Accounting.
Yep.
You're part of our team, and that's been helpful. You did mention onboarding and what that looks like, and there are some unique challenges whenever you're bringing people on that aren't here.
Yep.
You have to think about your training plan.
Yep.
And if your training plan is typically simply
sit next to the desk next to me,
come sit down and we're going to figure it out together, You're going to struggle with successful onboarding of your remote people because as much as you are trying to include them and you're trying to get them to be part of the team and you are including them in everything that you're doing, it is still different.
Yep.
They are not physically present in your location. And so the things that you don't really think about how the physical presence really affects things are going to rear its head. For example, I don't have to go check in with Osher, whose desk is probably closest to where my office is, about what's going on because I can hear every conversation that he has, and I'm not on a Zoom with him to do that. And he doesn't really know that I'm, listening in. And I don't mean like from an eavesdrop standpoint, but simply I can hear everything that's going on in his world. He can hear most of the things that are going on in my office. And so there's just some of those things that are going to be caught, not intentionally, but just by accident. You lose out on some of that stuff whenever your people are remote.
Yeah, I think you have to structure a little bit better there. And our recommendation would be, particularly maybe the first 90 days, is you have either a weekly one-on-one or a biweekly one-on-one with those new employees, 15 minutes, just checking in. It's a routine, structured check-in call. Training-wise, we used a lot of Zoom. I mean, they were on Zoom all day.
A lot.
We also have, luckily, we've got in our Learn tool, which is the same tool we sell. It works, but it's the LMS that we have, and we were able to implement that for a lot of our general trainings are set up now at this point. We have a couple roles. We were lucky enough, when David was hired, he was local, but he still was able to go through that process. So now we're testing it. Our remote people have used a lot of our training online already. But we had a decent structure around it. And also the person who was training those people is also remote.
Yeah.
So it was remote to remote. So it was a little bit unique for us in that, Kim was doing a lot of the heavy lifting on training. We also had everybody else do training too, but Kim was on that. We had a pretty good structure, and we had 3 people start the same day, which means we could do a lot of the same trainings repetitive. We didn't have to do them 3 different times. But we've recorded all that now, and it's all part of our system. So now we can have them just watch videos.
Yeah. Another thing to think about is, we had a lot, or at least I know I did. I had a lot of head trash I had to get through with the idea of bringing a remote person in. And one of the things that really helped me with that is a few of the people that we brought in already had experience being a remote employee. Yep. And so we weren't recreating the wheel from the standpoint of, all right, this is what it means to be remote. They already had some habits that were built. Their workspace in their house was already kind of designated as, this is my office, this is my workspace.
Yep, they go to work. They go to work every day.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so we didn't have to break through those things as much, which honestly helped me kind of get a little more comfortable with the idea of, all right, now we got people on our team that aren't sitting in our office, and they are, still just as productive, or, still putting in all of the hours that we would expect them to put into.
What was some of your head trash?
I thought, man, you know what? There's no way that all of the informal training and informal conversations that happen, I didn't feel like we would be able to replicate that with our remote people. The things like, hey, you know what, Becky, I heard you on that call and you said XYZ, and that should have been LML, whatever. That wasn't really part of our sit down, we're going to do our training, but I just happened to hear it, that we would lose some of that. And we do a little bit, but it's not nearly as big of a deal as what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, luckily, I think, is because we hired really quality people.
Yeah.
Not that we wouldn't have tried to hire quality people, no matter where they are, but we got really great people as part of this hiring process. Some of my challenges over the years have been tied to, all right, how can we support them technology-wise if they need that help? How does that work remotely? How do you make them feel like part of the team? Like, how do you? Because when we interview people, part of the challenge they had was, I'm working remotely and I don't feel like I'm part of the team.
Yeah.
We never hear from my boss. I never talk to them. Well, our structure's different. You have to prove that to them. But we already had a lot of those cadences in place for communications because we were already working remotely. We knew that was a challenge even for people that left here and went to work somewhere else.
Yeah.
And we've learned over time how to do that better.
Another thing that always kind of creeps into my head, and I don't even like to admit it, but the reality is, with remote people, some of my preconceived notions are, hey, if I don't hear back from you within an hour or two, or I don't see that response, my immediate thought is,
they're twirling their thumbs.
Man, they're like at the grocery store right now. They're not even actually working. And that's not fair. And honestly, it's not true.
Yep.
But that's where my brain can immediately go with our remote team.
Well, I mean, as long as we are rewarding with compensation based on work performed,
Yeah.
then it's not a big
That's,
deal.
so that's one of the things that Greg and I talked about in an earlier podcast is the idea that your performance-based metrics are consistent regardless if you're in person or remote. And that's helped me.
If it takes you 10 hours to do what everybody else does in 8 hours because you are going to the grocery store middle of the day, then so be it.
Yeah.
If you got it done in 4 hours and it's all done and you're producing more than anybody else, I also don't care.
Yeah.
I just want the work done.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I want. I just want the work done. I want it done right and on time, and I want us to communicate exceptionally. Let's do those things every time.
Yeah. But it is a challenge. Another thing that a lot of people don't think about when they're hiring remote people, this is what I wrote down and Matt was alluding to earlier.
Payroll, benefits, issues.
Couple things to think about. As soon as you bring on a remote employee that's working in a different state, you're establishing a tax jurisdiction in that place that you have to account for payroll purposes.
And income taxes.
Yeah, so payroll taxes as a whole. So if I am here in Memphis and I hire somebody that's going to be working remotely in Kentucky, that's my first person that I've ever hired in Kentucky, I'm now liable for withholding their state withholding tax. I have to report state unemployment tax into Kentucky.
And Kentucky is a wonderful state.
Kentucky also has some local taxes that I may not even be aware of.
Correct.
But because I am hiring that person, it's something to consider. Now, ultimately, this isn't necessarily going to be a higher cost than you would have if that person was local from the actual true expense side of things. But the cumbersome nature of just having to deal with other tax agencies and that type of stuff is going to have an effect on you that you probably haven't considered. That's why outsourcing that stuff to somebody like Works, where we handle all of that for you, is critically important.
On the income tax side, you've triggered Nexus. Nexus is anytime you have two factors, and sales is one of those factors because you have now revenue being generated by an employee in theory. You have people or you have property. People, though, almost always get you to Nexus regardless of what they're doing. So that means you have an income tax filing requirement in those states.
Yeah. Another thing to think about is your policies. So if I hire somebody that is working in Denver, as an example, I now have to provide the mandatory local paid sick leave that is applicable in that particular city. And so even though 99 of my 100 employees are here sitting in Memphis, I have that one person. I now have to offer them all of the policies that are in place for that particular location.
And, on our HR side, we're talking about you have a handbook. You have certain requirements. Let's say if you hire somebody that's in California, that's a whole different ball of wax.
Overtime
concerns based on those are 8-hour days, right? I think there's the rules.
8 hour. They have a daily overtime, a weekly overtime, a 7 consecutive workday overtime, and your normal FLSA.
And you have minimum wage requirements in those states. You have all those different things. It's not just as simple as you're hired. You've just hired. You've opened another office. The office is in somebody's house.
Yeah.
And so those are very big concerns to be thinking about.
Yeah. It is. And especially if you're starting to pepper people all over the country, where next thing you know, I got 20 people working on my team and I'm in 15 different states.
Why is my payroll so high?
Because
you're in 15 different states.
That starts to get a little bit cumbersome. And it's definitely something that you really have to consider because it can get out of hand pretty quick.
Yeah, I can imagine so. What do you think we do well when it comes to making sure people feel like they're part of the team?
One of the things is just simply saying it, repeating it often.
You're a part of the team. Hey, you're a part of the team. You're a part of the team.
It's to the point where it gets redundant is the point where they're starting to actually hear it. If you say it once, it's an introduction. If you say it over and over and over again, you're starting to communicate. And so simply by saying, hey, you know what, I'm really glad that you're part of our team. Those types of things just to reinforce the idea you are part of our team. So we do a decent job of making sure everybody knows that, and we say it over and over again. But also like the little things like including them. If we're having a company outing for St. Patrick's Day, they're going to get an invitation to that, and they're going to get an invitation for them to come in and participate in that without being out of pocket for travel cost. Because that's what we do when you're part of the team.
Yeah.
And so the daily check-in stuff that we do, the daily huddle where everybody's on Zoom and we're talking, is a good thing that we do that really reinforces and establishes we're all a team and we have the same expectations. Everybody's going to be a part of that huddle. And so it's just those little things. There's
Except
nothing.
for Rick. Rick doesn't show up all the time.
Rick shows up.
Rick,
on
if
the
you're listening to the
phone,
podcast,
maybe on mute.
huddle starts at 11:30 every day.
That's funny. But I don't.
By the
think
way, is it
it's
11:30 right now? Okay.
close? Yeah. So it's not any one big thing that is going to get all your people together as part of the team. It's a whole bunch of little things.
Yep.
And so you have to be. It's like disciplining your kids. You got to be consistent. You got to be thorough. And right to the point where you think that you are about to pull your hair out, you probably are doing a good job.
My thing is just be intentional with it. I think you have to be intentional about making sure you are including them and that you have a plan for how you're going to train and onboard and hire and keep them attached and make sure you're developing the right way. They're just like another employee sitting at another desk. The desk just happens to be farther away, so it may take a little more work.
Yeah.
But it's well worth it. We love our remote team. I love my remote team. They're fantastic.
They're great. And the opportunity that they've opened up has been really.
We got some really good experts. We got some really good people as part of this process, and I really appreciate the work they do. They just jump right in with both feet.
Absolutely. And so we expect this conversation to continue. If you guys are out there and you are thinking about having remote people, or you do have remote people and you have some different challenges that we haven't brought up today, we would love to hear about it, because we would expect those challenges are going to come up in our world at some point. We just haven't experienced it yet. So please reach out and let us know. And so we're going to close on this. Last week, Shelby and I were in here. We were talking about having difficult conversations, and we got a question in from one of our viewers. And the question is this: when you're terminating an employee, when should that person's last day be? Are you terminating them right then and immediately then, or are you giving them some time or whatever? So here's my answer to that, and I'll let you chime in, Matt.
Okay.
If you are terminating somebody for like a really big reason, like they're stealing from you, they murdered somebody, or, then you're fired. We're going to walk you out, and I hope you have a great life. If it is, they're coming to you and they're saying, hey, you know what, this isn't going to work out, I'm going to quit. Then
quit and fire are way different, right?
It is. Okay, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So in that particular circumstance, it may simply be, hey, we're going to say that your last day is next Friday. But if you have some security issues, like internally here, a lot of times, if you come and you say that, hey, I'm going to quit, or whatever, then because of the data type of stuff that we work with, we a lot of times will say, that's great, I'm going to pay you until that day, but you're not going to actually come in and work during that time frame. And there's there's some different rules around that. But ultimately, if you're firing for somebody for cause, then absolutely you're firing them, and it's done today.
If I'm letting somebody go, terminating, I'm letting them go today no matter what. Yeah. If I'm terminating them, I'm paying them through an appropriate time based on either their agreement with me on the front end, which was their severance agreements, or, I'm going to pay you in the pay period. I'm going to pay you, something of something. If it's for cause, you're going to get a paycheck today. You're going to get paid to the day and the day only. If that, no, you'll get that one. But, but the reality is, if I'm letting somebody go, I don't want them hanging around the office.
You can separate their last day of being in the office and the day that they get paid through.
If they quit, depending on the role they're in and the time of year, today may be their last day, but I generally will pay to the end of the next pay period if they quit, if they give me notice and they're like, hey, I'm gonna leave in 2 weeks, they're gonna get paid those 2 weeks. But if it is they may not have to work it, depending on what the situation is.
One of the things I would recommend,
we have somebody leaving right now, and he's going to continue to work with us a little bit afterwards on a part-time basis. That's okay. So he's working through his last day here. He can get paid through his last day. We have a relationship with him going forward. But if it's just like, hey, I need to let you go, that's a way different story. Today's your last day. We're gonna be getting you out of the building as quickly as possible. Yeah, there's nothing that can happen. Nothing good can happen once you've.
One of the things that I do recommend is if you have somebody that is putting in a 2 weeks notice, it's respectful to honor that 2 weeks.
They did the right thing. Now,
don't penalize them by saying, all right, today's your last day. You're not getting paid past a day.
Correct.
Don't do that.
Yeah, that's the wrong way to do it. You want to pay them through the notice. If they stop showing up, that's a different story.
Yeah.
And if they what I'd say is quit on bad terms. So if they were supposed to give you 30 days notice and then give you 7 days notice, then you're not paying them for the 30 days they were supposed to give you notice for, just the 7 days.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've had that happen before too.
Good question. If you have some questions about that topic going forward, or even what we talked about today with remote
Ask
employees,
all the firing questions to Mike, as we talked about last time, or y'all did. I'm the good cop, and Mike is the bad cop. So
dang it, he listened to that episode.
I did.
So yeah, send your questions in. You can find us on social media, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn.
All the things.
All of the things. Send us an email. I believe our email address is onestepbetter@patrickaccounting.com. And so you can send us an email and we'll get it there. And
we'll get that email set up.
You know what? Let's do this. I'm making an executive decision. If you send us a question and we answer your question on our podcast, we're going to send you a T-shirt.
I like it.
So,
Let's do it.
So send in your questions and we're going to filter through them and get them going.
It's a half shirt with no sleeves, but you're going to love it.
Woo! Have some fun.
Just kidding.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for listening. I really appreciate it. If you haven't subscribed yet, whether you listen to us on Spotify, Google, Apple, wherever you're finding us, please click on that subscribe button. Leave us a comment. Give us a rating. Tell us how awesome we are. We love those kudos. And we'll see you next week on another edition of the One Step Better podcast. Thanks.